Hello, hello. Today's episode is a fun one. And if you spent any time on social media lately, you've probably seen about the recent documentaries released, reels and headlines about microplastics and endocrine disruptors in our environment. Now, I have been talking about this for at least 3 years now inside of my preconception program. Endocrine disruptors that come from microplastics, whenever these type of chemicals act as estrogen in our body. I've been talking about this in relation to fertility for years. But if I'm being honest, in today's world, it feels very easy to walk away from scrolling through social media, feeling like everything is poisoning us and feeling extremely overwhelmed and like you just need to throw out your entire closet and start over. So today, I want to have a very balanced conversation with you, one that acknowledges that yes, environmental toxins absolutely matter, especially for women's health, hormones, fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum recovery, but also one that leaves you feeling empowered instead of fearful, and to know how to appropriately take action when it comes to this and not feel like you just can't even overhaul everything to get to where you want to get to. I will talk you through how I prioritize reducing toxin load in my life and in my family's, but that the goal truly here is progress, not perfection, and that I am nowhere close to perfection. I'm just making smart swaps over time. And I've been moving through this for the past decade. So we'll talk about how I started on this journey, where I am now, and how I recommend moving through this on your own, while also helping you feel further educated on this topic. So, first off, why does this matter in the first place for women specifically? What are endocrine disruptors? So, these are chemicals that interfere with hormone signaling. They can mimic hormones in the body, which then can block the typical hormone cascade that our body needs for optimal fertility, growth development, maintaining a pregnancy, etc. This also can alter how hormones are produced or metabolized in the body. So, what are these chemicals that we're being exposed to in our environment? They can be things like BPA, phthalates, PFAS, pesticides, and plastics. The reason women should care is that many of these compounds behave like estrogen or influence estrogen signaling pathways. Many endocrine disrupting chemicals associated with plastics can mimic this estrogen like activity in the body. And we know that estrogen is one of our female reproductive hormones, and it plays this perfect, like nice, intricate balancing act with progesterone. And so when we way increase the amount of estrogen signaling our body is receiving, this can throw off things such as our cycle. So from personal experience, I experienced a very irregular cycle back when I was in high school and into the start of college. And so that's when I really first started diving into what things can influence our cycle regularity. And our environmental toxins is one such area. So our menstrual cycle is orchestrated by a delicate balance of hormones and communication between the brain, ovaries, and uterus. Certain endocrine disrupting chemicals, like those I just mentioned, can mimic or interfere with hormones like estrogen, thus disrupting that signaling pathway, which can change cycle length irregularity. So when outside chemicals start sending confusing signals that resemble estrogen, it can make it harder for the body to coordinate the timing of ovulation and menstruation. So we can see firsthand how that would affect fertility as well. Now, we're in an infertility epidemic in our world right now, and definitely in the United States, in our country here. And so this should be concerning, and this is important. But we also can't lose sight of the bigger picture of health, which we'll dive into as we move through things today. PMS can also be influenced by hormonal fluctuations and that delicate balance needed, as well as ovarian function. So when that ovary is going to release its egg to then potentially lead to a future pregnancy, right? And then pregnancy itself, this is an especially sensitive time because the developing babies rely on carefully regulated hormonal and developmental signals. So when these environmental chemicals that have been associated with mimicking estrogen in the body, this can have adverse pregnancy outcomes or even effects on fetal development, which is why many healthcare providers, myself included, really recommend minimizing those chemical exposures that we can avoid during pregnancy, but also all of the time, right? So I want to dive into the problem with a fear-based health signaling that I've been seeing a lot of lately, though. The wellness culture can at times be overwhelming, right? We scroll through social media or we watch a documentary and we walk away feeling like, okay, my clothes aren't enough, my sheets aren't good enough, my cookware isn't good enough, my shampoo isn't either, nor is my food, right? So at some point, we have to ask ourselves whether the stress of trying to be perfect is creating a separate burden of its own. And this is the area that I feel like isn't being talked about enough. We need to bring the nervous system of our health into play here. All right. So not only does the nervous system need to be considered, but also just adequate nutrition in general, right? So not only the quality of that nutrition, but are we nourishing our bodies well? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we getting daily movement? Are we getting good sunlight patterns? Meaning, are we seeing sunlight on our eyes first thing in the morning and then reducing overhead light exposure as that sun starts to set in the evening? Because that affects our hormone signaling as well. And how are we managing our stress? So the big picture of health isn't just on toxin reduction. And I fear we have lost the bigger picture of health in today's society at times. So while rooted in a good effort to reduce toxin exposure, we also have created a different kind of toxicity: fear, stress, anxiety. And that's not good either. That leads to inflammation, that leads to altered hormone patterns. And so, where do I land in all of this? Well, I developed years ago a priority framework when, like I said, I started moving through this stuff myself when I was experiencing my own irregular cycle. This was, goodness, I was in college. I wanted a family someday. I was told that I was going to struggle to have children because I was getting a cycle once a year and that I likely wouldn't be able to conceive without medication. Well, spoiler alert, we are now 4 children in and all have been conceived our first cycle of trying, or in our 4th case, without even, quote, trying. So how did I chip away at this? Well, priority number 1 is what goes in your body. So I've been seeing a ton of information lately about what goes around your body, talking about clothing. And we're going to get to that as priority number 3. Priority number 1 needs to be what goes in your body. This is where I would spend the most time chipping away at your toxin exposure. Okay, food, water, drinks, supplements, because this exposure is direct. So for example, focus on whole foods, minimize packaged foods. If we think about buying foods that are wrapped in plastic or are in a bag that's lined with aluminum or in aluminum kind of cans, right? Instead, can we buy from a local farmer's market? Can we get meat in bulk from a local farmer? It's a larger cost up front, but it'll end up being cheaper on the long term. Can you start getting your eggs from a local farmer down the road versus buying at the grocery store, right? So whole foods, we're prioritizing. Bread's another huge one. Can you get it from a local baker, or can you start learning to bake it yourself, right? You're going to get rid of all of those preservatives and chemicals that are put into keeping foods shelf stable. Next, we want to buy organic when possible. So with prioritizing this, you can look at Dirty Dozen list and the Clean 15 concept. EWG releases a new list for this every single year. So just Google 2026 EWG Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 and you'll see it pop up. So for instance, strawberries are pretty much always on the Dirty Dozen list because they are heavily sprayed with pesticides when not organic because of the delicate nature of that fruit. Whereas something like a banana with that tough outer skin that we are not eating, it's not as necessary to be organic because A, it doesn't need sprayed with as many pesticides because of that tough outer skin, but B, we're not even eating the skin of it, right? So something like that may fall on that Clean 15 list versus the strawberry is going to fall on the Dirty Dozen, meaning that a non-organic version uses a lot of pesticides, and so we want to buy the organic version. So prioritize organic when possible, especially for Dirty Dozen foods. And then Clean 15 foods, you can feel more comfortable buying non-organic and saving some money there. This does not have to be perfect. So for instance, I would rather somebody eat regular eggs from the grocery store. Let's say there are not pasture-raised eggs available and it's just, your typical run-of-the-mill eggs. I would rather somebody eat that instead of being like, oh, okay, there's not good eggs or I don't have a local farmer I can get them from, so I'm just going to eat cereal, right? Like typical cereal. So I want you to look at the bigger picture here. Like eggs are giving you protein no matter which egg you're getting it from, right? But yes, I care very much about the quality. So I'm getting mine from my best friend from high school who is a homesteader just down the road. Thankfully, I can get them from her, but if she doesn't have any available, I have no problem just getting them from Aldi or Kroger. And those are my eggs for the week. They're still giving us protein, right? So we can get into the weeds with this. And of course, we want to optimize where possible. I absolutely do. But also, compare it to not having eggs at all. Like we need to get out of the weeds with some of this. Next is water. This is going to be one of your highest returns on investment. We want to have water filtration. So again, EWG, Environmental Working Group, you can go to that website and type in your municipal water supply. Even if you're getting filtered town water, it is still likely going to come back with high levels of chlorine, heavy metals, and pharmaceuticals, which can all fall into that category of environmental toxins, which can mimic estrogen in our body, or can even have cancer-causing agents within them. And so we want to further filter our drinking water. And so reverse osmosis is going to most highly filter out any of those extra chemicals that we don't want to be ingesting. If you don't have the option, such as us right now, we're in a small rental, we're not going to install a reverse osmosis under the sink filtration unit because we're here short term. In our new build, we are. But for the short term, I got one of those stainless steel countertop water filtration devices. Water Drop is the brand that we have. Berkey is another popular one. And that is just going to further filtrate out our drinking water. You also want to start reducing plastic bottle use to avoid the leaching of those microplastics. So that can be both from reusable water bottles, but also if you're somebody who is just buying, and I'll have patients who tell me they're doing this, they're buying like plastic water bottles in bulk from the store to use as their drinking water instead of their town tap water. Stop, you're getting the microplastics from all of those bottles. Instead, get, like I mentioned, one of those stainless steel on your countertop versions. You can get the Water Drop one for $99. Like, so well worth it. And then you just pour like your regular tap water into it and it'll filter out some of those extra chemical compounds we don't want to be ingesting. So think about what you're also storing your water in. So if you're bringing your reusable water bottle places, make sure it's either glass or stainless steel, again, avoiding the microplastic exposure. And then food storage, same thing. We want to optimize storage in glass containers or stainless steel. If I am using plastic, I'm going to use it for things like energy balls, something that is not getting reheated, something that was not warm in the first place, and something that's not liquid, because liquid is going to leach more of those microplastics from that food storage container than something like an energy ball, which the whole surface of it isn't touching, right? Since it's those round ball format. So if I'm out of glass containers to store things in, then the only times I'll kind of reach for plastic is at that time, and I'll use it for things like energy balls, or if I'm making food for somebody, it's again, not something that you're doing all of the time. So it's okay to use that here and there. You just want to minimize its use. Priority number 2 is what goes on your body. So I'm talking about topical agents. Our skin is our largest organ, right? It is an organ. And so I want you to think about things like lotion, sunscreen, deodorant, that's right by lymphatic pathways, right under our armpit there, right? Makeup, face masks, toothpaste, right? So these are the products that we're using repeatedly. And again, within this order of priority, we can think about what are we using on a daily basis? What am I using on more like a weekly basis? And then what is like maybe a few times a year? So for instance, on a near daily basis, I am using shampoo, conditioner, a face wash, lotion, both on my face and then on my body, toothpaste. All of those I would swap out immediately to be clean. Now, you can wait till you run out of whatever you're currently using, right? Because it's something you're using frequently. So you will run out of it here in the next month or two, right? And then replace it with something that is a cleaner option. So for instance, I absolutely love Primally Pure. I've been using it for nearly a decade now or more. I love that for my skincare. So I use their cleansing oil, their cleansing balm in the evening, and then I will apply some of their serums. I'll use their soothing balm lately. That's been awesome for sun exposure. So I can use it on my face. I'll use it on my kiddos' faces or shoulders if they get too much sun exposure and they're turning a little red. And it's amazing, like literally the next morning, we don't see any of that red skin tint. It really, truly is soothing in nature. I also have their body butters, and I feel comfortable using this on myself when I'm in that preconception mode, right? When fertility is important, when cycle regularity is important. And I'll use it during pregnancy. There's no altered effects during pregnancy because I'm not getting any chemical exposure from using these skincare agents. And then I am comfortable using it postpartum when I'm snuggling up against my baby. And it's so nice to have a skincare routine that I don't feel like I need to swap out when I'm pregnant because it has something like retinol in it, right? Or when I'm breastfeeding because I'm fearful of it leaching microplastics into my milk supply. And I will also say with their balms, I use that on my kids too. So if they have like dry skin, especially through the winter, like the body balms are so, so awesome. So it kind of becomes a family skincare routine and able to be used as needed versus, oh, this can only be mom's because of the chemical agents that are in it that aren't appropriate for young skin. So I just like to mention that because true clean skincare pretty much should be able to be used on any member of the family. Of course, appropriately. They're not using my whole skincare routine, but those balms kind of as needed, and there's no altered chemical effects from it. So those agents that you're using daily are where you want to make your swaps first. Mineral sunscreen is another huge one. I also use Primally Pure's here versus very chemical Aladdin sunscreen. Those are some of the topical agents that can be the most chemically derived. And so if your kiddo has reacted to like a typical sunscreen, it's easy to see why. So Primally Pure is the sunscreen that I also use. For any of their products, you can use discount code Dr. Kayla. That's DrKayla, and you'll get a 10% off discount. Now, women typically use far more personal care products than men. So like I said, think about how this affects the whole family, but what are your children using on a daily basis? What are you? And then what is your spouse? Now, if it's something like eyeliner that you're using once or twice a year, for me personally, I'm pretty much only using that when I go to a wedding, which at this point is once or twice a year. That I haven't swapped out. That is not a clean brand. So it's okay if you still have a few things kind of lingering that aren't the absolute best rating in terms of clean products. Not feeling stressed over that because it's not something you're using all the time, right? So swap out what you're using daily first, then weekly, then kind of that monthly or as needed basis, and go from there. Now, priority number 3 is what goes around your body. This is where clothing enters and where you can calm down if you haven't made the other changes yet. I've been making swaps for over a decade now and initially focused on the first 2 priority areas. Now that those are smooth sailing in our home, I'm thinking more about what is going around our bodies. So don't compare my decade of changes to your first year. Again, priority number 1, what is going in your body? What are you eating? What are you drinking? Priority number 2 is what goes on your body. What can your skin absorb? And then priority number 3 is what goes around your body. This is going to be things like our clothing, the textiles in our home, our blankets, our sheets, our couches, our flooring, right? All of these different things that can off gas. And this is all so front of mind for me right now because we're building a house. And I will do an entirely different episode on this because I think it would be really interesting to walk through some of the house decisions that we've made. But specifically focusing on what goes around your body in terms of clothing today, because this is relevant for all of you. And it's truly that starting place because it's actually touching our body at all times, right? So similar as we can have a prioritization within the priority with our other categories, we can with this one too. So first, you want to think about what you're spending the most time in. So our undergarments, that's touching our body at all times, whether we're awake or asleep, right? So your undies and your bras, those would be a first priority to replace. Then your sheets, you're spending 8 hours laying on those, right? So organic GOTS certified sheets or OEcoTex certified. Now let's talk for a minute about these certifications because I think a lot of people are like, wait, what are you talking about? So GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standard, is the gold standard in textiles, is considered one of the highest quality standards available for textiles across the board. So textiles meaning any kind of like fabric or material. So it certifies that the entire supply chain uses organic farming, environmental sustainability, and ethical labor. So we're also looking at like the dyes used with it are all organically certified, and that is confirmed by this third party like certification testing party. Another certification to look for is OECOTEX. It's OEKOTEX, OECOTEX. This primarily tests the finished product versus that entire supply chain. So it's going to test the finished product in a lab to guarantee that they are free from harmful chemicals and safe for human skin. Now, I will tell you right up front that you're going to find the OECOTEX certification far more often than you will the GOTS certification because it's been around for longer. And so just because a company may not be GOTS certified yet, and they may be working on it, right? So it can always be good to kind of read about the company if they don't have the certification yet, or if you see OECOTEX to again know, okay, that the final product was tested, which is awesome. Now, furniture, like I said, we'll dive into this deeper on a different episode, but this does fall into that around your body category, and kind of think about the off-gassing that all of the different things in our home could fall into. In that category, if you are shopping for new items there, you can look for Green Guard Gold certified, which is going to help show that it has low off-gassing, as well as CertiPure US for safe foams, and then FSC for responsibly harvested wood. So to just help you better understand some of the certifications that you may come across as you're looking for more natural fibers. So what are natural fibers to look for when it comes to clothing? This would be cotton, linen, wool, and silk. So cotton and linen are, especially here in the summertime, what we're going to be most looking for. Some of my favorite brands for this would be Quince, so Quince. They have great linen options. Now, not everything from them is like purely cotton or purely linen, so you always just want to look at like about the product or details, and then it will tell you what the material is made from. Packed, Made the Label, those are all great options as well. Oftentimes GOTS certified. So like, for instance, the undies, the bralettes, I just got some from Made the Label. So those, making sure they're more GOTS certified versus simply cotton or linen without the certification. Wool, that's coming more into play, of course, in the fall and the winter months, getting wool socks because our feet are super absorptive. So that's great. Silk is going to be a higher quality, a higher cost item, but that is something that if your budget allows, you could consider for like skirts or dresses for more of those dressier occasions. So how do I approach this in my own life? Well, as I mentioned, sheets, yes, cotton sheets got certified or OECOTEX certified. Perfect, pretty darn easy to find. I know even Costco has some at the moment. Then would be undergarments, and then clothing. So as I am buying new clothes, I'm being a more mindful consumer. I feel like the more you know, the more you can't unlearn the things that you know. And so for me, as I said, I've chipped away at this for a long time now, that now I'm just more mindful of it and aware. And so as I'm shopping for new clothes, I am just looking at like product details and then what it's made of. And that's factoring into my consumer behavior as I am getting new clothes for myself or for my children or my husband. Now, is 100% of our wardrobe currently natural materials? Absolutely not. Will it be in the future? Probably not. Just being honest, this is that priority 3 category, right? So it's okay to have some products that aren't like 100% perfect. And I think that feels almost hard to say on like a holistically well podcast where we're in this environment of like everything has to be like 100%. I think it's important for you to know as the listener that polarizing topics of having a 100% one way or 100% way the other, those are always going to get more attention. And so living in a space where I'm telling you that it's okay to like take your time and to listen to your nervous system and to like have more of like an 80-20 approach, that's life. Like that's reality for most of us. And I want you to know that you can exhale and take a sigh of relief and that that's okay. And so that's kind of how I approach it with my family. And as I'm replacing new things with better quality materials, I am getting rid of those polyester-based clothing items that are just, polyester is literally like made of plastic. And you'll start to feel the difference as you introduce more, for instance, like cotton tights I now use instead of a polyester-based Lululemon one. I can feel itchy whenever I have more of the polyester material on. So your body does get used to the natural fibers, which is awesome. But then you start craving more of that. And so I just encourage you as you're moving through this on your own to understand that like your journey is yours and to not compare yourself who is a decade ahead of you. And then also, as you start to make these better choices for your health, you're going to start to move away from those not so clean or good choices because it's not going to feel as good when you put it in, on, or around your body. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. I am excited for you to start chipping away at this yourself. Truly, it takes time. And I like to say one bad thing out, one good thing in, and we just keep smart swapping over time. When I'm a little bit more aggressive with clients in terms of swapping things out is when we're seeing specific issues popping up in their health. So that's something on an individual basis that we can certainly dive into on any kind of one-on-one appointments. So to sum up today's conversation, I don't believe our goal is to create a perfectly toxin-free life. I don't think that's completely possible in our modern world. But I do believe the goal is to do the best that we can with the education and the knowledge that we have. And so, being a wise consumer, buying organic for those dirty dozen, buying whatever fits in your budget for those things that fall in the clean 15. Products that we're using on a daily basis, we're making sure are clean and free of these harmful chemicals that truly can disrupt our pregnancy outcomes, our fertility, and our hormone cycle regularity, especially for females who are menstruating. And then being more mindful about what goes around our body, our clothing, our textiles, our sheets, our furniture, and making choices that fall within our budget as a consumer that feel good to our nervous system. And starting with one change at a time, not feeling overwhelmed that you need to overhaul everything at one time. Giving yourself the space to evolve, to learn, and then to become a smart consumer as it unfolds. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's conversation of how I approach smart swaps in my home, going in, on, and around my body as a mother of 4 and a holistic physical therapist who's also realistic and really cares about your nervous system health, because that factors into things too and just isn't talked about enough. In future episodes, I would be happy to do deeper dive on things like home products, like flooring, countertops, paint, all of that kind of stuff, or specifics for like clothing brands and baby products, things like that. So if there's anything specific that you want to learn more about, just shoot me a DM over at Dr. Kayla Borchers. And then in the show notes, I'll also link my Holistically Well Toolbox. It's a free guide that breaks down my favorite clean items for things like toothpaste, body care products, lotions, all of that jazz, because I know it can feel overwhelming of where to turn, and I want you to have a resource that doesn't cost anything for you and just can kind of be a guide as you move through it. So that's the Holistically Well Toolbox in the show notes, or you can DM me on Instagram Toolbox, and I'll send the link your way. Until next time, take care and be well, and be sure to drop us a 5-star review so I can keep bringing you more conversations like this.